I'm Sarah.
And I'm Jolene, and Korea has officially lost its status as a drug-free country.
First, let's get clear what being a drug-free country means.
It does not necessarily refer to a country having zero drugs in its territory, but as the United Nations states, the drug-free status applies to those who have 20 or less drug offenders per 100,000 people. This term used to apply to Korea until 2016, when the rate increased to over 24 offenders per 100,000 people. And in 2022, it was 36. Korea wasn't always a drug-free country, as there are records of use of drugs before the 70s. There are records of the American military importing and using drugs during their stay in Korea, as well as the American military blaming Korea for growing marijuana in the countryside and getting their soldiers high. And, as learned in Dr. Sage's class, drugs started to get banned in the 70s during the Park Chung-hee's dictatorship, with the case of Shin Jun-hyun's arrest. Nowadays, when investigating why some Koreans started doing drugs in Korea, some of the responses were, "I tried them while living abroad in countries where it's legal and I liked it. So when I came back, I looked for someone who sells it."
As a response to this, President Yoon declared an official war on drugs in 2022. The policy measures introduced by the Yoon government include creating a special drug investigation team in the Supreme Prosecutor's Office, establishing a task force to prevent the inflow of drugs into the country, and creating a surveillance system that automatically flags suspicious online transactions. Along with plans to train up to 190 drug rehabilitation experts, they also increased sentences for drug-related crimes, including stronger sentences for drug possession, such as marijuana. The Supreme Court also recently passed a measure stating that individuals selling drugs to minors could be sentenced to life in prison.
As an example to Jun's war on drugs, we have the case of 2023 with former actor Lee Sung-kyun, who was investigated for alleged drug abuse. The information of his involvement and interrogation was leaked to the media, leading to sensationalist and biased media framing him as a drug addict and a disgrace to the country. Even after innocence was proven, sadly the events still lead to his suicide. This is not the first time the media frames a star as a drug addict to create awareness of the drug war. Such examples are G-Dragon and former 2NE1 member Park Bom. In Korea, media outlets tend to frame and exaggerate a situation with the purpose of gaining views. Not only that, but also netizens tend to go after someone who is blamed on such news and destroy their career even before it is proven real or fake, like the case with the actor.
As shown, sensationalism in the media can have serious negative consequences for individuals, mainly because it can lead to the stigmatization and demonization of drug users. However, through our analysis, we found that media framing in South Korea doesn't only promote the stigmatization of drug users, but also often contains anti-foreign sentiments. The nature of the international drug trade means that foreign nationals will obviously be heavily involved in the drug trade. That being said, while convictions of drug-related crimes involving foreigners are rising, foreigners still only make up about 11% of all the drug-related convictions in Korea. Yet, some media framing and institutions present the issue as a foreigner issue rather than a drug issue. Let's take a look at some other articles that come up when you search war on drugs in Korean. First, let's take a look at the framing of two articles. The first article is about a YouTuber who received a piece of candy that had a small hole in it, which he suspected showed that the candy contained drugs. This article sensationalizes a minor incident by framing foreigners giving out candy as a potential threat linked to rising drug crimes. The article also solely focuses on the YouTuber's reaction and speculation from netizens without any evidence of the candy actually containing a drug or not. The use of language like "be careful" in the title creates a sense of fear and alarm, reinforcing stereotypes about drug-related dangers caused by foreigners. Then we have this article about a case where officials arrested two foreigners who possessed methamphetamine and hashish, which uses polarizing language by linking drug addiction to violent behavior, stating, "If you are addicted, you will bite people." Also, referring to the drug involved as a zombie drug instills fear around drug use. This is not to minimize the severity of drug crimes, but it is to point out that when we looked into the issue, there seemed to be a larger number of news outlets reporting specifically on foreigners involved in drug crimes rather than Koreans, and that these reports, especially when detailing nationality and/or immigration status, may contribute to xenophobia and discrimination against certain communities.
Media has a duty to carefully gather information and verify its accuracy before delivering it to the public, as well as avoiding stereotypes and being as impartial as possible. It's important to distinguish any biased framing in the news we read, as well as reading more than just the title, such as critically reading an article with sensationalist titles like X is a drug addict, or foreigners are to blame for what is happening. Reading the full article and detecting keywords that may be framing people in order to create a bias for the reader, as well as properly identifying the background of the source. Are they famous for exaggerating things? For having a strong political view in regards to a certain party? Nevertheless, the online community is full of all kinds of opinions and points of view. Yet, it doesn't mean someone will have the absolute truth. We still need to act like a good citizen and look for all the information available to create a proper idea of what is happening in the world.
While some groups believe that the government should take even stricter measures in terms of policing, others believe that the government should distinguish between drug dealers and drug users and implement policies that, instead of blaming persons, focus on building strong rehabilitation systems that address the underlying issues causing the increasing demand for drugs.